Hey everyone, so if 2019 is going to be our year, we need to make sure that our Photoshop workspace sparks joy, meaning it is as organized as possible so that we can do the best work of our lives this year and do it most efficiently. So today, right now, I'm going to talk about patterns. And for me, most of you are really familiar with my Impressionist brushes, which have really changed the game in Photoshop. And when we talk about patterns in Photoshop, for the most part, I use my patterns to organize my color blends for my Photoshop brushes. So we're going to talk a little bit about this. And I'm going to pop up here. I have my Impressionist, I have my pattern stamp tool activated so that I can see my patterns up here. And for the most part, I don't want, I've made a lot of different color blends for you, and I don't load everything up at once, but I'm going to show you how I have things organized. And yours might be a little bit different, but you can kind of get an idea of what I do. So I have some paper patterns up here, and I've got, you can't really see, but I have some seamless patterns that I use a lot, and I have some textures that I use in my brushes. So this is something kind of specific for me, but the thing is you want to just have loaded what you use like every day. And then if you use things for a project, fine. But this is my base text or patterns here. And then usually I have my Impressionist, my modern Impressionist color palettes loaded up because this is a good base one because you have kind of all the colors of the rainbow and you've got a really good color blend base situation going on here. So that's what I have kind of loaded up. And then if I'm using one of my color couture collections to work on a project or an illustration, I have that loaded up too. But this is kind of my base because if you loaded up every color blend that I've made, it could, depending on the size of or the speed and the memory in your computer, slow down your Photoshop. So we don't want to do that. So we want to keep everything as mean as possible, and really find the pattern, like whatever patterns you use every day or most often, and load them up here. And and it could be that you use a few colors from different collections a lot, but you find out what's your base and keep just your base most of the time loaded in here. Excuse me. And then also make sure you back up your base like once a week, or and me sometimes I'm backing it up every day because your Photoshop could crash, things could change. And sometimes when my Photoshop crashes, I'll lose patterns or something that I was working on. So I actually usually back up every day or every other day. And I'll show you more about that later. So I have my base patterns loaded up here, and you have to decide what's your base. And then one important thing that's really important to have somewhere on your hard drive or on your external hard drive. Keep one location where you have all the presets you have, like that you've purchased, that you've whatever bought, that are from me, that you've made. But I have a little folder here, and then what I would have is like these folders within it. And so have one folder for actions, put all your actions here. One folder for brushes, put all your brushes here. One for colors, patterns, styles, tools. And then I have a backup folder where I keep what I have currently loaded, and I back that up regularly inside there. So I'll have this folder set for you to download. So if you want to just to have this and get a little jump start. But normally I keep all my patterns in one folder. And one good thing is they might have funky names when you download them. So if they do, rename them so that you can understand them. And so that way you always have them available and you can just double click to load them up or whatever. But I just wanted to show you the file structure that I have here. And then another thing is my collections of color blends. I like to have them really close at hand. So I like to have them, if I go here to my patterns, I click up on this gear shift here. I like to have them all available right here. And if you look, you'll see, like, in addition to some of the default Photoshop patterns, I've got Artistic Autumn, I've got my Colors of the Côte d'Azur, English Garden, my Color Couture collections, you see 1 through 10, Palm Beach. So I have a lot of my own that I like to have them right here that I can just double click them if I want them. So if I wanted to use my Color Couture collection #1, I could just click on this and then I'll click append, and that will add it to my current things, my current patterns. So I do that a lot. So whenever I need to work on an illustration and I want to use one of my Color Coutures, I load it up from there. And you might ask, how do I get my things in there? And so this is a good thing that I use. So this is a good tip that I do. So I go within my application folder. Now I'm on a Mac, and I'll find a link and try to put it below for PCs. But in your applications, you go to Photoshop and then presets. And then in there, you're going to have like the different one. There's a lot of presets, but you'll see the ones that you use a lot, like brushes and styles and patterns. So in here, in patterns, these are the default, and I don't like to mess with them. I just leave them there because that's the Photoshop defaults that come with Photoshop. So I don't mess with them. You could delete them if you wanted, but I create a separate folder called Jess so that I can make sure that I keep all of mine separate, because otherwise if I put them all in here, they'd get all mixed up with the defaults. So I put a folder called Jess, and these are all of my patterns that I like to have at hand. And if you are a member or you bought a lot of my collections, you'll see a lot of them. These are the color blends. Mainly they're the color blends for my brushes. So we've got Artistic Autumn, Colors of the Côte d'Azur, English Garden, my Color Coutures, my main Impressionist blends, Palm Beach Garden Party, and the Masters, Impressionist Masters, and then I have another one for paper. But that way I have them close at hand. I can load them within Photoshop, within my this gear icon right here, so they're really handy, but they're not loaded up and like weighing down my Photoshop in general. So that's great. And I keep them in a folder so that I know which ones are mine and not the Photoshop defaults. And it doesn't matter that you put it in a folder. If you put it in a folder, you're going to see them just the same right here. So that's my little trick that keeps so that I know which ones are mine rather than just dumping them in the main patterns folder. And so that is basically how I organize my patterns, which are really most of the time my color blends. And now if you use my layer styles, you will know that they come with patterns too, because all of my layer styles are patterns. They're just seamless patterns that go on over as an overlay. But I would strongly recommend that you just use the one-click layer styles, and I will go over that in another video. So I don't load up any of there's no real need to, like, for my Instagram, my 24 karat gold layer styles, my Creative Couture styles, the glittery styles, you don't need to load them into your patterns, and I don't load them. I will show you how I use them in another video. But mainly, just to recap, I use my color blends. I use my patterns mainly for my Impressionist color blends, and I always keep them backed up in a location, one master location. And then the ones that I want to have available all the time, I put in my application folder. And yeah, and just try to keep it lean and mean as possible. And also try to create your own little base, of patterns that is just the essential ones that you use most of the time, and then like back that up once a week. So if you have any questions, just, write them down below. And be sure to check out my other videos, because I'm going to be going over brushes, tools, layer styles, all this kind of good stuff, because we want our Photoshop to be as organized as possible, so we think as little as possible and everything's automated, and that way you're going to get more work done more efficiently, and it's going to be more fun and spark more joy. So hopefully you enjoyed this, and check out the other videos so that we can have like a really organized Photoshop and have a really productive year in 2019.